Well, hello everyone. This is my teaser video for, wow, the first Sunday in October. Yes, I think it's October 2nd. And this Sunday I'm going to be looking, the title of my sermon is Unchecked. And we're going to be looking at a passage from First Corinthians chapter 5, verses 6 through 9. But really, if you're using these teaser videos to kind of read in and get a good understanding before the sermon, you probably want to read all of chapter 5, 1 Corinthians chapter 5. I usually pick a few verses, but then I tend to talk about the whole passage to give the background and everything. But 1 Corinthians chapter 5 is Paul writing to the Corinth church. And he's addressing some behavior that, even though he's not in Corinth, he's heard about the behavior and he's addressing it, and he's kind of reprimanding the church for not addressing the issue, but instead allowing it to go, and actually they're boasting about the behavior. And it got me thinking, as you guys know, I'm part of the Church Health Commission here in the Eastern Region Churches of God, and a lot of things that we end up dealing with churches who are having issues, or who are in trouble for one thing or another. And as you start looking into the details of why these troubles have come about, you start seeing that usually there's a lot of behavior or actions in the church that just went unchecked, where people knew things were going on that kind of weren't right, but they didn't want to say anything about it. They didn't want to bring it up. They didn't want to make someone feel uncomfortable. And that's a really scary concept when you think about what the church is supposed to stand for and what we're supposed to do. But in general, most people want to avoid confrontation. They don't want to call somebody out. We live in a society where they say everybody can pretty much do whatever they want. You can't judge people. You can't make the decisions. But when we start talking about the church and God's house, we need to react and act as Scripture tells us to. And in this passage, Paul has already made his decision. When you read the whole chapter 5, you'll see Paul already made his decision, what should be done. And it's interesting because unchecked behavior can cause a lot of issues. And it's interesting. Come November, a month away, I will have been here at Pembroke for 3 years. And there's a lot of things I've addressed in those 3 years since I've been here. And I have to say, quite a few is addressing things that were just being unchecked. Things that either didn't agree with Scripture, didn't agree with our churches of God we believe, and our denominational belief. Things that just were where the Constitution was being ignored by the church. I mean, honestly, my first 6 months or so, I think we removed 3-4 people off of council, just because when you start looking at what it entailed, and it had to be addressed. We couldn't no longer just say, hey, we're afraid to lose people. We can't get enough people to serve. We're just going to allow whoever to serve and be on. And that's not the way God's church needs to operate. And I specifically, as a pastor, when we look at Paul, he says, we aren't to judge the unchurched. For those who don't know Jesus, we're not to judge them. We're not to hold them accountable, because how can you hold them accountable to standards they don't know? So we welcome everyone into the church. We accept them the way they are. But when they start to learn about Jesus, they start to learn about Scripture. When they choose to accept Jesus and choose to get baptized in their name, when they make those statements or those confessions, they are now saying, we're asking to be held accountable. They're now saying we're asking to be held accountable. And that's what we are supposed to do as a church. We're supposed to be holding each other accountable. So as a pastor, one of the things I've been doing is I've been making it very clear to the leadership, to the elders, I hold them at a higher standard than I hold the council. To the council, I hold them to a higher standard than the people in the congregation. To the people who are up front on the stages, if that's praise teams, singers, musicians, if you're going to be up front leading us in worship, I hold you to a higher standard than the people in the congregation. And we need to understand, it's not just Mark making up some ideas or rules. It's what the Bible's telling us to do to protect God's church, that we are representing Him. So I will be talking and sharing about some of the things. One thing I have noticed is a lot of people who've been in church where they have not been, where they've been unchecked or nobody held them accountable. Often when you do hold them accountable, they tend to leave the church, which also shows that they probably weren't in the church for the right reason to begin with. And that has happened here in 3 years. I know people who have left the church because there's something I had to bring up to be addressed, and their response was basically, well, then, if this is a standard I have to meet, I'm going to leave the church because I'm not going to do that. And from what I understand, they're not attending churches anywhere else. So as far as their relationship with God and the spiritual journey, that's on them to make those decisions. But we, as a church, need to make sure that we are not letting things go unchecked. We have standards that God has set down for us. So it's kind of a lot. I know it probably seems I think it could be interesting. We'll see what you think. But read 1 Corinthians chapter 5. I did notice the camera froze up once or twice during the taping of this. I tried to backtrack, so you probably didn't miss anything if you saw me freeze up but enjoy the teaser. We'll see everyone on Sunday. It is Worldwide Communion Sunday this Sunday, so we will be taking communion. Everything will be in individual cups again, like we did before. If you are a council member or an elder, we ask you to come early this Sunday so we can, again, just go over the procedures of serving communion so we can have an orderly communion with the rest of our brothers and sisters in the world. Have a great day. Hopefully we'll see you on Sunday. Bye.